Welcome to the Drilling Millions podcast, presented by Sage Dental Partners, your practice transition team.
All right, so let's talk about your early career. Your website claims you're really one of the youngest dentists to get your doctorate. So walk me through how that happened.
So it was fortuitous. So I did my undergrad at York University and got accepted to dental school miraculously after 2 years. And
Is that allowed?
It was at the time. Now I think a year or two after I did it, it changed to a 3-year minimum. But I got lucky. I also fast tracked through high school. So getting into dental school, I was like just turning 19, right?
What the hell?
I was 18.
Still wearing diapers?
Still in diapers, yeah. So so the dental school was fun. I mean, I had a great experience in dental school. You're going through it, so you know what I mean. Like, it's stressful, it's hard, it's this, but I always had the outlook that this is what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to hit the ground running, start to work, because this is why I picked dentistry. I didn't need a residency. I didn't need to do anything. I could just go. I never liked school, right? So I just wanted to just get it done. So lo and behold, 2003, they give me a license. And I thought it was a license to practice dentistry, but I was wrong, right? When I finished school, I realized that the license was really a license to learn, because I left school knowing really nothing, right? So
I can relate to that.
So you go through the requirements and you're struggling to get the crown and the bridge and the denture and everything in place. But then when you're out there and you're not doing a residency and you're not sort of pursuing more education, you realize that you really don't know anything. And all these concepts that you leave school with are good. Like, you have a foundation, but to actually do stuff, it's really, really challenging. So my first year out, I was associating about an hour north of Toronto. Great guy, great mentor, held my hand throughout it all. But to me, it wasn't so much about work, it was more about learning. So it was courses every weekend. I was getting really familiar with what I liked in dentistry, where I wanted to develop more. And at the time, it was more aesthetics, right? Because it was a big thing, 2003, aesthetic dentistry, we never learned about veneers and bonding and all these things. So I really took a liking of it and kind of pushed through on the aesthetic and the restorative side. Along the way, kind of shifted some associateships here and there, and then fell into implant dentistry. Right? Early on in dental school, I did some work in the perio department, so I always had a connection with implant dentistry. I always liked it, but I always thought, kind of like a U of T grad, that implants are for specialists, right? Like, we shouldn't be touching these things. And I was assisting some of the great periodontists of today at U of T who were going through the program at the time. So I learned a lot. I knew a lot, but I never really thought this would be something for me. But with my license to learn, you kind of get out there and you get educated and you get to learn from the best that are doing it. And you come to realize that you can try. And I'm always one to sort of jump into things. So jumped into implant dentistry and haven't looked back since. I built a practice from scratch. I bought practices to sort of join in. I've sold practices. I've sort of done through the gamut of what you can do as a practitioner. It's been nearly 20 years now in the business, right? So I've gone through it all. But being the youngest was a challenge for the first year. But past that, I think that when I got my fellowship at the Academy of General Dentistry, when I came up on the podium, they also said, Dan Hagi, the youngest to ever receive the fellowship for the Academy of General Dentistry. And I'm like, I'm getting too old for this youngest stuff. Um, so it was just fortuitous being the youngest of anything.
Well, I'm so jealous of people that are young. I was having this conversation with someone last week. Someone was my girlfriend. She listens to that. She's like, "Why don't you mention me?" So I had a conversation with my girlfriend about like just the beauty of being young, because I have a classmate that was born in 2000 and I'm born in 97. My girlfriend's a year younger than me in dental school and born in 97 as well. So it's like, when you have age on your side, you can just do so many things, because now it's like, okay, well, I'm 25. By the time I graduate, I'm going to be 26, 27. I got to start getting my act together. I can't really just, start spiraling at that age. Like, I got to at least have somewhat of a direction. And I kind of look back to when I was in my undergrad, and I was like, wow, I really kissed those years away, because I was so concentrated about getting into dental school. I could have networked. I could have, started a side hustle. I could have done a million things because I had time on my side. If you're 17, 18, 19, who cares if something fails, right? But when you're like 28, 29, 30, like, you start getting into that realm of, okay, like, your decisions stop just impacting you and start impacting others.
I think I agree with you on that, but I disagree about the threshold. I think the threshold of being able to take these risks and learn and kind of go through, it's no longer like in your 20s. I think you have through your 30s, right? It's really until if you're establishing sort of a family and you have somebody under you that's kind of relying on you, is the time when you want to mitigate those risks and sort of be on a safer path. Although it's a misnomer, because we take risks all the time. But I think that your 20s and your early 30s are really the time to take those risks and to try things out and to experiment and to see what you like. Like this, there is no safe path. Like, once you set something in stone in your 20s, you're kind of stuck too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you didn't make the right decision. Maybe you should have done something else. So I think that threshold, you still have time. You still have time with that. There's
well, the front page of the Globe about 2 or 3 days ago, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, was about foreign trained doctors, like doctors that went to Ireland, Australia to study medicine and are having a hard time coming back. And that was a path that I was considering taking many years ago. And I was like thinking, man, like, if I made a decision when I was in high school about where I'd basically be locking myself into until I'm, mid to late 20s, that's a really tough gig.
Yeah.
That's a really tough gig, and not being able to be sort of as agile. I'm still in dental school, so I'm still sort of locked in, but I just wonder, like, when you were in your 20s and 30s, what sort of risks were you taking to further your career?
So I mean, I got into dentistry really early on, right? So the risks, a lot of them have to do with the directions within dentistry. So I mean, these decisions, they seem like big decisions at the time, but they're really small decisions. Like when I look back on it, like, should I be associating here? Should I be doing a residency? Should I be specializing at this point? Am I going to start a practice close to home, or am I going to start a practice downtown Toronto? Should I be starting a practice? Should I be buying a practice? Like, all these things, like, we consider them as a risky move, right? But they're not. Like, now, if I'm going to say, okay, I have an established practice, I have a footprint in what I want to do, I have an education institute, I have certain things that I established. If I'm going to say now, hey, I'm going to move to Barcelona and go practice there, right? That's to me, that is now it's the ultimate in riskiness, right? Because I'm still sort of confined to the dentistry that I love doing, but I can kind of stretch it to different places. So I think that we tend to take these decisions as big decisions in the moment, and we should. But over the long run, within our profession, these decisions are really small, right? It's really what we do with things and how we kind of push things forward. So to answer the question, have I taken a lot of risks? I don't think so. I don't think there's been a lot of risk. I think it was all calculated, and I kind of knew where I was going. And hopefully I got there.
So, speaking to a common friend, both you and I have, Alex, I know you're too humble to say this, but, I think when he had made the introduction, he had said, there are only a handful of dentists that place implants for oral surgeons. And he mentioned you as one of them. So I won't ask you to comment on that, but it makes me wonder, why didn't you specialize in like perio or prostho?
During my journey, I considered specializing, and I always thought if I were to specialize, I would do periopros. I like too much about dentistry to have focused on one thing. And I realized too that in liking implant dentistry, which is what I enjoy the most out of my day, is placing and to a certain degree restoring implants. There is no real specialty to this, right? You can say that oral surgery or perio have a surgical focus, but it's not really the specialty of implants. There is no specialty to implants. The specialties do the bulk of implants, because in North America, this was the history. That's where Brennemark came in and said oral surgeons are going to place these things, prosthodontists are going to restore it. But in terms of the education that a specialty has in any of these implant disciplines, it's not more than, I'm going to get crucified for saying this, but it's not more than what I took as CE after the fact, after graduating. So I think specialists are phenomenal, or the oral surgeons and the periodontists are phenomenal in their surgical acumen. There's a lot of education that is taken from these programs, but it's not necessarily implant focused. So I always thought, if I'm specializing, what am I really doing it for if what I want to do is focus on dental implants? And honestly, I think a general practitioner with experience and time behind them has more to provide the patients in terms of care on an implant basis than a given specialist can. So that's really the crux of it. I didn't think it was worth the time.
Like 100%, academia only takes you so far, right? And a lot of the times, like, it's almost, I equate it to, if you want to learn about crypto, right, or Bitcoin. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too far, but if you want to learn about crypto, you're going to have a lot more fun learning about it on your own terms, through Wikipedia, through Google, through YouTube. And you're probably going to learn a lot better than if you go to an institution and they're like, okay, let's start with a blockchain. What is a bit, right? And it's like, you hammer this like very small, irrelevant point to the fault of not having that practical knowledge, which I've heard repetitively from a lot of people who are specialists, which is, an oral surgeon, how much better are you at taking out a 1-1 than like a general dentist who's been doing it his entire career? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I look at these specialties, especially oral surgery, that is really underutilized in the community, right? Because you look at these guys, they're trained with orthognathic surgery, they're trained with trauma, with cancers, with treatments that are really involved, that there's no way that somebody like me will ever do something like that, right? That's not within the scope of my practice. But taking out a wisdom tooth certainly is, because in most of the time there's not much challenge. And to these guys, taking out a wisdom tooth is really, really simple.
Yeah.
So it's something that I think happens very wastefully in the community, because there's not enough of the skills of what an oral surgeon can do that's being utilized in the community. But for us as general dentists, we can pretty much do everything, right? And that's what's attractive about general dentistry, is that you don't have to do everything. You can kind of pick and choose what it is that you like to do. If you like to do endos and that's all you like to do, you don't have to specialize in endodontics necessarily, but you could be the endodontist. You could be the GP endodontist that got really good at it, right? And that's what general dentistry gives you, is the avenue to really hone what you like and be really, really, really good at it.